Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by StravaCraft Coffee. Do remember to use that promo code DNVR20 because you save 20% off on your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering StravaCraft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I am the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. Excuse me. I've already got a little bit of a crump in my throat, and it's just because I can't quite swallow my Breck brew quite correctly. But I suppose we could also pretend that to some degree it is in memoriam over the end of the Colorado Rockies season. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'll be hanging out here with you between the two games of the doubleheader here. I think Patrick Lyons will be along here before too long, but with a 4-0 loss at the hands of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and once again, Zac Gallen, who just continues to be pretty remarkable and overall underrated pitcher in the game of baseball. They get shut out. The season ends not with a bang, but with a whimper. And tough one there, friends. There's, as far as the game goes, it was pretty basic and simple. Senzatela wasn't terrible by any means. He faltered briefly there in the third, a 2-out rally where the Diamondbacks managed to score 3 runs, really through one, what I would call bad pitch, Christian Walker, that went for a 2-run jack. And beyond that, Senzatela was mostly fine. Not his best stuff, not his worst stuff. He was fine. He kept the Rockies, or he could have kept the Rockies in just about any other game. This is the last guy you want to see when you need to win out to save your season. Zac Gallen's just too good a pitcher to come up against and blink in any way. And so not only were the Rockies unable to find a way to get at him, take advantage of certain breaks that went their way. For example, Raimel Tapia reaching to lead off the game on catcher's interference, finding a way to take advantage of situations like that where you get a base runner against a good pitcher who doesn't give up a ton of base runners because you caught a little bit of luck, not able to do anything with it. A few other situations like that throughout the game, but ultimately it was just they got dominated by a guy who's often very good, who did have his A stuff, and their starting pitcher wasn't able to match him, shutout inning for shutout inning and make it a see who can finally score a run type of game like we saw Kyle Freeland able to do earlier in the season. And that's it, folks. That's all. The Rockies can still try to find their over on the DraftKings Sportsbook. There's something to play for, getting 2 more wins out of here. And I know a lot of people took the over, so you want to get your money. There's taking at least 1 game so that they don't finish last in the NL West, if that's something you're into. If you don't want to be in the cellar, you want to beat these Diamondbacks. But they are now mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And it's a tough one. It's just tough to take all the way around because I know there are a lot of people who never believed in this team who are going to say, I told you so. And to some degree, they have every right to do that. There are a lot of things that have been heavily criticized about this team that, as it turned out, ended up being problems. And were exacerbated in this short season and without Nolan Arenado to carry them through it, where they've often had a player who's one of the best of all time carrying them through it. he was not that guy this year, and they completely fell apart. And, that's not a structurally, fundamentally sound team. And there's a lot to be addressed. And, I said recently, somebody asked on Twitter, hey, is it time to dive 100% and heavily get into off-season talk and, do the whole thing? And we're marching very heavily toward that now. And I've already started to look into the contracts and the numbers and where everybody's at. And, I haven't started looking too much at the free agent class, so I don't have much for you on that yet. But, and I know I've said this a couple of times, the good news here is that the Rockies will have, really for the first time since Jeff Bridich's first offseason as a general manager, they're going to have flexibility, money to spend, roster spots to fill, stuff that they'll just need to do in order to fill out the roster. And it's going to be very fascinating to see which way they go. And if, and I expect they will, they continue to let Jeff Bridich be the one who makes those decisions, it will be interesting to see if he comes through on one thing I've thought of during his tenure of being a young GM, right? And not in terms of his age, like in terms of his experience. And if he's learned from the mistakes, regardless of what he said, and I know everyone wants to flambe the guy for what he says, and fair enough, I care about what he does next. And this is going to be very fascinating. And if he blows it, that's it. But let's see what happens. But we'll have plenty of time, here in the next couple of days. Stick with us because we are going to dive into all of that. Like I said, I've been looking at the numbers. I've been looking at the contracts. I've been taking a look to see who's under contract for the next couple of years and where the Rockies will need to fill in terms of major league talent and all of those types of things. And there's a lot. There's going to be a deep conversation to be had, and it's going to be fun. And the most interesting thing I think about it is that the core of the team, I think most people agree, is actually still pretty good. I think wherever you stand on how vociferously you think the rest of the roster is terrible versus my opinion, which is more, they definitely didn't have it in certain spots, and the bullpen was a disaster. Some guys don't get enough credit. Certain stats are going to mislead you. But ultimately, they didn't have enough in terms of their supporting cast. I think most people agree that the core, Arenado, isn't going to have a season this bad again. Story, Blackman, Marquez, Freeland, Gray is a combination of things, especially all those guys still being in their mid-20s. Now Senzatela, you can kind of add to that as well, right? And all those guys. Now we'll see about Arenado, obviously. That's going to be a big question. But all those guys are under contract to come back, with Arenado having that opt-out at the end of next year looming over the whole thing, and maybe they decide to trade him before potentially losing him for nothing. Trevor Story, John Gray are free agents after next season if they are not extended. But just for next year, 2021, coming back are, to put it broadly speaking to Rockies fans, the players you like, right? They're all coming back. Also with that, potentially a couple players you don't like so much. Now, I don't think Daniel Murphy's going to be on the team, but they are going to have to buy him out of his contract. And so they're going to have to pay him a little bit of money. So it's going to be a hit to their, but not a ton. I think it's $6 million to buy him out. So that's not a huge hit on your books. And he won't, I don't think, be on the roster. Desmond is the one that's sort of up in the air and we really don't know. But if he does come back, he won't be making a ton of money. Start doing some interesting things around that. Will they? Will they have the capability? Will they have the knowledge? Will they have the aggressiveness? Any of that stuff, I know a lot of people think they already know the answer to those questions, but I'll tell you this, ain't none of you got a crystal ball. None of us know the future. I've been watching way too much Star Trek: The Next Generation lately to think that we can just know stuff like that. So let's find out. Let's see where it goes. And like I said, just hang with us, because it's going to be absolutely fascinating. The Rockies are in a unique spot. Very few teams have, strong cores that are all like in their 20s, or Charlie Blackmon. Sorry, Chuck. And now Nolan's going to be, early 30s, but still you're not expecting Nolan to be bad or to really, be aging even in terms of a drop off next year. Like he could still have the best year of his career left in him. In fact, I think Nolan Arenado does have the best year of his career left in him. And certainly offensively. He may start to slow down defensively, though. And so that's a good place to start. That's a great place to start. You just can't bat zero on all the tertiary moves on the rest of the roster. But they'll have another go at it. Clean slate almost to try again. And I, for one, it's going to tell us a ton about their philosophy, about what they really do. Philosophy? Is that what I just said? Philosophy. What they do value, all that stuff. And yes, Daniel, if they go and get new coaches, I will tell you this. I fully expect Bud Black to be back next year. But I also fully expect beyond that for there to be a number of coaching changes. And I think that there probably should be, because I think that they have philosophically done some things poorly throughout the season. And again, we can get into more and more details about that throughout the season. And honestly, since it's brought up, and I'll say this again, and since we're doing this on just after them having been eliminated, if you were asking me, would I try to bring in a new GM at this point? My answer would probably be yes. And while I do think that a lot of the criticisms against Jeff Bridich are frankly personal, I also think that this is like I was just saying, a unique point in time to rebuild or not even have to rebuild, but retool your team and turn yourself immediately into a contender if you can hit on 2 or 3 or maybe 4, but a couple of decent sized off-season moves. But they can't be Brian Shaw and Jake McGee and Wade Davis and all of that stuff. It's got to be, you got to hit on these. And I think one of them's got to be a bat. And that's tough because there's only a handful of guys who really just come in here and rake. People think it's an easy thing to do. It's not. But they got to go out and find somebody somewhere who can do it. And I think, handing the reins to a kind of redirection to somebody new can be a very good idea. So yes, if it was up to me, I would. And again, I think those questions should always be placed in the positive. I think there's certain candidates out there who would be interesting. So, I'll mention some of them. Again, I don't think it's likely, but we'll go through it very briefly about who would be some interesting GM candidates to come in here and right the ship for the Rockies. And also some of those people would make interesting team president candidates. And that's something that I've long talked about being a major issue, that the Rockies don't have someone to be a kind of manager of baseball operations, go between the owner and the GM and the players and the media and fans, and just kind of be that, politician, understanding person, but who really does know the game of baseball and can weigh in on the decisions and help people know, but also be that kind of face of operations. And that's all That should all be on the table. That should all be discussed, and we're going to be doing that throughout the offseason. I do have to give a combined sponsor. Toast of my DraftKings. Nope. Toast of my Breck Kings. Nope. No. Toast of my Breck Brew to the Draft King of the game, Raimel Tapia. Remember to use that promo code DNVR over there. Now, it's not a lot of candidates in this one for Draft King of the game. Nobody played a particularly great ball game, but Raimel Tapia on base 4 times. We mentioned the catcher's interference and then 3 singles after that. None of them hit especially hard, but I don't know how much more I can say, and I've got an article coming up too that's going to throw down all the specific numbers because I've made, again, the philosophical, the theoretical points about Raimel Tapia now over and over and over again, and he continues to show it, right? He continues to be the thing. Consistency, good at bats every time, a pain in the ass, gets on base, he causes guys problems. There he is, giving you chances. Find a way to hit the ball in the gap, he's going to score from first. We've seen it many, many times. He's got elite level speed. He's got elite level contact. Did it again today. And I can't help but laugh at the people I see out there still going, yeah, nice batting average, but Tapia is not great. They got to go out and get someone who can bat 250 but hit 30 home runs, and strike out 200 times. Again, assuming we have 162 games. It's going to be nice getting back to all of the normal kind of thresholds for statistics that we've been able to talk about over the years. It's been a weird season for me every time I want to talk about somebody being like a 20-20 guy. Like Trevor could have been a 20. Actually, Trevor was on story to be like on pace to be like a 30-30 guy for a minute there. I haven't checked that pace in a little while, but I wonder, we gotta check this out. How many hits Raimel Tapia was on pace for in a normal season? Because, as I've said many times, his WRC plus is never going to be great. But if he keeps doing that, he's a guy you want on your team. He's a guy who would be in any lineup on any team anywhere in baseball with the way he's hitting right now. And Joseph, like I said earlier, I agree. There's got to be some coaching changes. I don't think that necessarily needs to run all the way up to Bud Black, particularly because of the job he's done with this starting pitching core, and that still needing to be an important part of your team, right? Kyle Freeland, John Gray, Germán Marquez, Antonio Senzatela, and then after that, some collection of Peter Lambert and Ryan Castellani. Even if you go out and get a veteran starter, which I think should be considered, all those young pitchers have come to fruition and grown up in the game and gone through ups and downs with Bud Black, and they all love and respect and adore him. And it's the best group of starting pitchers in the history of Rockies baseball, which, yes, I know the bar isn't that high, but a lot of that has to do with the unique challenges that they face. And these pitchers have been better at overcoming those challenges at still a pretty young age than anybody else. And Bud Black has been a big part of that. Now, they got to do better out of the pen. And, that's an offensive woes and certain issues. And I don't know if some things just need to be, more analytically driven, so that if you're not a fan of Bud Black's decisions or lineups, that, again, that's something where if you had a team president, Bud Black could be left to do what he does best, which is be the young pitcher whisperer. And then with maybe some of this lineup stuff that I don't know, I'd have to check the evidence to see. I said all year that I thought Arenado should be moved down, but if you've got like some guy somewhere else who is making those kinds of decisions, so Arenado didn't have to get mad at Bud Black over the lineup. You've got somebody there going, hey, the analytics tell us we got to move you down a little bit. We got to move this guy up. We got to do things a little bit differently. I think that's another way you can get the best out of everybody. But yeah, we'll talk about we'll talk about candidates here, once the season's officially over. We'll jump into specifics on all this. I think we'll do like a money day, and then like a GM candidate day, and then some like coaching candidates days, and then we'll start looking at free agents and trades and all that stuff. And we'll do kind of reports on everybody on the Rockies roster, so we can get a real good sense of where they're at, what we should expect out of them moving forward, what their role is on the team now. Tapia and Fuentes have changed their roles. I think this season, Senzatela has changed his role this season. Daniel, I expect them to make a shot at bringing back your namesake, Mr. Bard, the poet, Daniel Bard. I would expect them to try to do that, and for him to give them a reasonable deal and be interested in doing so. And I think that would be a decent place, to start the rebuilding of your bullpen around Scott Oberg and Daniel Bard. And, Yency Almonte is still going to be around. Carlos Estevez and Jairo Diaz are still going to be around, and those guys are still in their 20s. And I know that they've been very, very frustrating, but with guys who've got stuff like that, you've still got to look for the moments when it clicks for them. But you've got to go out and get insurance and better guys and the best you can to better that situation there. Absolutely. But I do think that they'll go after bringing back Bard. I think will depend on like a guy like Kevin Pillar, what he's looking for in free agencies. He's been good for him. I don't think they're too interested in paying for an outfielder unless they've just really fallen in love with his defense, with Desmond coming back particularly as a right-handed outfielder. Not that his defense is as good as Pillar's. It's not. Pillar's is much, much better, and that would be a little disappointing, but you can probably find better use of that money there. Yeah. Hey, speaking of better use of your money, you don't have to spend any money to sign up for WGT Golf, and you can win some this weekend in our first DNVR major. So head over to DNVRgolf.com. Make sure you download WGT Golf totally for free on your phone or laptop. Then you can get into one of our clubhouses at DNVR and join us. Talk some trash, and if you win, you can win like $200. I think even third place, you get some T-shirts and some cool DNVR swag. You got to come hang out with us on the digital golf course. Download it totally for free today at DNVRgolf.com. A little too much, a little too late again, asking, has there ever been a serious talk of changing Coors Field fences to make serious talk of moving the fences in to make it more pitcher friendly? My understanding is that every once in a while that's brought up. And that's another thing that I think we should dive into in the off season. It's something I've always been a proponent of. Actually, I had somebody explain to me once that you achieve basically the same thing, but rather than moving the fences in, you actually move like home plate up a little bit and then readjust everything. Same basic idea. You've got to make the outfield smaller. It's hell on your pitchers. It's hell on your outfield defenders. It's just an absolute nightmare. And it makes games take longer. It inflates all the ERAs like we talked about. There's so many things about the big outfield. And if you do it, of course, the counter argument is unfortunately simple, right? There's two things. One, you will give up more home runs, and that's just going to happen. Unless Will's got a solution for that I'll get into in a second. But the other thing is, if you bring in the fences at Coors Field, 29 other fan bases in baseball are going to go, what the hell? Because they're in their minds, right? Coors Field is still this launching pad, absolute joke of an offensive ballpark. And if you bring the fences in, everyone's going to go, oh my God, they're making it even more of an offensive ballpark. And I don't think that it would have that effect, actually, especially if you could figure out a way to implement Will's idea. But there's problems here, Will. He says taller walls, more foul territory. Now, the taller walls is interesting. And I think that could do, and that's part of the reasoning behind the Breitich barrier, right? Which was correct in my estimation. And you could have some sort of extension of that around the park if you bring the fences in. So guys really got to hit it up to get it out. And the more foul territory, I also think, would really help out your pitchers, as we see in places like San Diego and Oakland. The difficulty there is that you got to take out seats. And I don't think that's going to happen, right? That's a money thing, right? That's a difficult thing to sell any owner on doing. But the taller walls is maybe something that we could come up with just the right situation where you can bring in the fences, raise the walls so that you prevent too many more home runs. But ultimately, if a guy hits a home run, he lined you up, and it's all the bloopy, dinky, doinky hits like the ones we saw in that game against John Gray, or for John Gray against the Diamondbacks at Coors early in the year, where he's just like, come on, man. I'm making my pitches. I'm breaking bats. These guys are stepping in the bucket, or they're hitting it off the end of the bat. And everything's just falling in because my outfielders have to cover the football field. Each one of them has their own football field to cover. Not quite that, but yeah. It's yeah, and Will, you're right. If that's, I think that's why the person said to me what they said. You move center, or you move home plate forward a little bit more and readjust everything. That actually naturally will create more foul territory. That's why you do it that way rather than just bring in the fences, right? Because you, in a lot of those places, you can't. And actually, just think about the way Coors Field is set up. Like, that would be just, from a construction standpoint, very difficult to just like adjust all of the fencing out there. It's all a little bit different. So yeah, move home plate forward about 10 feet and then redraw the lines. And then yeah, raise the walls in a couple of spots. Absolutely. Kenneth, I will get to you about specific free agents. We'll maybe do that day one of the offseason just to do something fun and start talking about pitchers and stuff, because I do want to do that stuff. I don't want to leave out Patrick Lyons, for one, and for two, I do just have a weird, like, I've already done, I mean, I've been talking offseason here for a minute now, obviously, but there's a certain respect for the season that's still going on, and to jump right into the free agent stuff while there are still, like, they're about to play another game. So, I'm going to sign off here in just a minute. But, yeah, day one that the Rockies are officially out, they're no longer playing, we'll jump into specific free agents, how they would or wouldn't fit, all the money, all that kind of good stuff. So that's an interesting question from A Little Too Much, A Little Too Late Again. Is the Hideo Nomo no-no one of the top three marvels in Coors Field history? I would have to think on some of the greatest marvels in Coors Field history. That's a great word too, and that's an excellent category. Just sort of the most amazing things that have happened there, right? Yes, I would. Yes, anybody throwing a no-hitter at Coors Field, that's a marvel, indeed. And The fact that nobody else has done it before or since, no no-nos, since no-mo's no-no, remarkably impressive. I can't imagine it would get knocked out of the top 3, but I'd have to think pretty long and hard about that. So I'm going to do that a little bit here as we get back and watch the second game of this doubleheader. Obviously, it doesn't hold as much meaning right now, but Antonio Santos on the hill for the Rockies with a clean slate, the first start of his career. See what he can do, maybe settled in, lower pressure environment. He was throwing some wicked stuff last year at the Arizona Fall League. We haven't seen that kind of stuff out of him at the big league level. So let's go find out. Thank you all for hanging out with us here on the live on the YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you click on that bell icon so that you get a notification wherever we're going, whenever we're going live. Make sure you're hanging out with us on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick D. Lyons. You give a subscribe to the DNVR.com so you don't miss out on any of that written content, and you just continue to be absolutely awesome out there. I will continue to be absolutely Drew Creasman in here, and until next time, see you at the ballpark.